Everyone, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our highly anticipated webinar, Harvesting Hospitality, the Glamping Gateway to Farm Diversification. I'm your host, Barry Caslin, and today promises to be a very enriching journey into the world of glamping and its potential as a transformative venture for farmers and landowners. But before we dive into the discussion, I'd like to introduce our esteemed guests who will bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We have Máire in Mhurchú. Máire, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Máire is chair of the Irish Self-Catering Federation. Máire is a leader in Irish tourism policy and accommodation advocacy. Her insights into regulations, policy changes and registration processes are invaluable for those considering glamping as a diversification strategy. So Máire, great to have you here this morning. Alan, good morning, Alan. How are you? Alan Vaughan.
Good morning, Barry.
Alan is a practitioner of glamping and the founder of Ivy Hill Glamping Pod in Lahinch in County Clare. Alan is here to share his journey and his experience in establishing and managing a successful glamping site, and to give his perspectives on sustainability and community engagement will be surely inspiring. And we've Martin Keating. Good morning, Martin. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Great to have you here, Martin. Martin is an entrepreneur and visionary founder of Westport Glamping, together with his wife Marie. Martin has redefined luxury camping, striking a balance between affordability and indulgence, and his experience will be key. It will show key highlights in today's discussion as well. So great to have you all here this morning. So we're going to explore the potential of glamping to unlock the rural Ireland's hidden gems. And folks, remember to engage with our guests and feel free to post your questions in the chat. And without further ado, we'll dive into the exciting world of hospitality and harvesting hospitality to the world of glamping. So, Máire, you are going to start it off. You're going to give a presentation, and then our other two guests, Martin and Alan, are going to just join the discussion and answer questions that maybe our audience are going to put to them. But maybe you just set the scene in terms of the policy and the regulation around this whole area of glamping for us, please. And you can please feel free to share your presentation with us there now.
Okay, can you not see it?
No, not at the minute now, no.
Oh, drat. Okay, I'm having technical issues. Do you have a copy of it? No?
I don't, no.
Okay. Right. Okay, I'm having technical issues here. So I'll start talking and hopefully I can get it through to you in a minute. So traditionally the glamping was self-catering was a house. The traditional view we have is of a thatched cottage, a beautiful thatched cottage like the one in Adair. So the self-catering has changed quite a lot. And we now have a lot of people entering the market with farmers who are talking about looking for glamping options or farm options. So the first thing I would say is for farmers is to consider what they have and what they need. So you do have space, you have land, but do you have a family who are interested in working with you in this? And do you have enough interest in it to keep a business going long term? A friend of mine who's a farmer who has gone into the tourism industry said it's just the same as dealing with cows, but it's a different time of the year that you're busy. So at the moment, farmers are busy with calving. Tourism is really busy from May until October. You want to make sure you've got enough units to make the thing viable. And I say a minimum of 6 units, but if you have 10, it makes a business much more viable for you. You want to make sure you have a separate entry from the farm to the area where your visitors are coming. And in the actual unit, you are going to need a glamping, you're going to need an accommodation block, which will give guests an area to meet, to be introduced to the business, which will also have a kitchen, a meeting point, couches, probably a linen store for you, and an area where the laundry is washed. There are lots of different types of glamping. So the glamping could be the pods, it could be cottages, it could be bunkhouses, which you might use, big buildings which you could use, which could be used by students or groups. You may be turning farm accommodation into farm units into accommodation, like old barns or old stores or old milking parlours that I've seen. You may decide you want to put in shepherd's huts, or you may decide that you want to have a facility for camper vans who will park overnight. And that is another area. And all together will give you a more viable business. So in other words, it may not just be one thing. You may have a few different pieces that you can draw together. Now, there are regulations where this is concerned. And the first regulation is a register for short-term rental, which will be in within the next 6 months. And that means each unit will have a registration number. And Fáilte Ireland are the statutory agents for this, and they're going to manage it for the EU. I was advised even yesterday that it is a very straightforward, simple registration system for this, and each unit will have a particular number. There is also the situation where you need to get planning permission, and because you're changing the use of the buildings or part of the farm. So there are new guidelines coming in for planners and owners of short-term rental, and it's going to treat rural areas differently to urban areas, particularly in the RPZ areas. So what I suggest is that you make a plan, talk to the planner, and then go and draw up your plans.
What are RPZ areas, Máire?
Oh yeah, sorry, Barry. Rent pressure zones. So rent pressure zones was brought in by the government about 6 or 7 years ago to deal with housing in urban areas, particularly Dublin. Unfortunately, the rent pressure zones now include whole counties such as Limerick, Limerick, Waterford, Wicklow. So County Meath is a rent pressure zone. So what it means is you do not get permission for any short-term rental at the moment. And that's why we've been talking to the government about this for quite some time. And that's why I suggest you go and talk to the planners before you go ahead and do anything, because there will be a much lighter regime coming in the next few months. I have been looking for the detail from the Department of Housing for quite some time, but it hasn't come in yet. The next thing you need is public liability insurance.
It's probably fair to say, Máire, that the rent pressure zones, that the housing for all policy is catching up with tourism as well. It's kind of affecting the whole tourism sector at the moment.
It's really affected the tourism sector. And a lot of people set up self-catering, 10, 20, 30 years ago. We didn't need planning to have a change of use. And now they're trying to insist that we all have planning permission. And at the same time, they're not giving planning permission. So it's been a stalemate for the last 2 or 3 years. And it has really affected the industry in the last 8 or 9 years, where there hasn't been any growth. The other thing I need to mention is that a lot of the economy accommodation is gone to government contracts to house refugees. And that means economy beds in hotels, in self-catering group schemes are gone, and they'll be gone until 25. So in other words, the end of quarter one of 25. What is going to happen then? We don't know. But we do know that the consumer is looking for a different type of product. So in other words, people are not as happy to go into hotels as they were. They're looking for more single unit family groups because people feel safer. And this is as a result of COVID. So are you happy with the RPZs?
Yep. Yeah,
right,
that's
sorry.
okay. Yeah.
Insurance. So you need to have public liability insurance for having people in self-catering, and you need to build your health and safety plan into what you're doing. So in other words, there's no point in coming back and finding that you're not going to get insurance because there's a stream running through the middle of your site, because you may be told health and safety is not going to work. So it's better to build it in at the beginning. And the last thing I'm going to mention that you need to have is quality assurance. So that's the standard. So at the moment, the 2 organisations giving quality assurance are the Irish Self-Catering Federation and Fáilte Ireland. It is not a legal requirement at the moment, but it may become so. we have challenges, and for us, the biggest challenge is the planning at the moment. But it will be regulated within the next few months. I was promised again yesterday. Farmers can do a thing called regenerative tourism. In other words, it's using old buildings in a more sustainable way. And it is a great way to reuse old farm buildings. And it means that your carbon footprint is much lower as a result. The biggest challenge for most people in the tourism industry is when you're busy and you're on call at all times during the season. So you need to look at your staffing costs. And if you have plenty of family to work with you, that's great. I was asked recently about woodlands. Woodland areas, there's a fire risk. So you're very unlikely to get planning permission for glamping, no matter how nice it is. I'm going to send the PowerPoint on to you, Barry. I'm really sorry that it's not coming up, but I have a picture here of a glamping that was built in an old quarry. And it is a real excellent use of an old quarry. It's a lovely glamping site up in the Sperrin Mountains. You have to have sewage and water supply for your full site, and you need to look at that. When you're planning your site, you may not decide to do a whole load. You might not decide to do 6 or 10 glamping initially, but you need to put in the sewage and the water supply in the beginning for that. I suggest that you investigate and look online at glamping in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, because we have been restricted because of the planning requirements in Ireland, in the south. So we've got a very limited amount of glamping at the moment. But there will be an awful lot more. There is a need for a lot more. What can you offer the community, or what can you offer the planners to get planning? So for the community, you may have a big barn that the people can have meetings in. You may provide public pathways through part of your farm. You may have toilets. You may have showers and a cafe. But one thing I will say about them is you can provide them for the community, but it doesn't mean that it has to be provided for free. So in other words, you can charge for the facility. You need to link with other businesses in the area. Look before you start at the activity providers and the visitor attractions. So the Cliffs of Moher is very obviously a big visitor attraction. Where Alan is living. But there are lots of other visitor attractions all around the country, or reasons for people to come and see. So I suggest you get somebody else from outside the area to come and look at your site, because you're so used to looking at your land and your farm, you don't even see the view most of the time. Whereas people from outside will come along and think it's a beautiful view. And the site that you might be picking on the farm may not be the best site for your business from a views point of view. So get somebody else, a complete stranger, in to come and have a look at it. You can link with food and drink producers in the area. And in fact, in Scotland, they have a very good scheme where there's a lot of glamping businesses who have produce on the farm as well. So they're selling direct to the consumer, and they're selling to other glamping businesses. And it works really, really well. Work with local pubs who do music, and the restaurants, and look at what events are on in the area. It may be a big festival like the Rose of Tralee, but there could be the local Cheval, there could be walking festival, there could be lots of other events in the area. So the next thing Barry asked me to cover was the supports. So the supports that we have in the Self-Catering Federation is we have information, we have a newsletter, we've quality assurance, and we've training, and we offer consultancy as well. Teagasc is obviously your number one go-to point, but don't forget the local enterprise board, who can give you an online trading voucher, the SEAI, who can give funding for sustainable practices for the business, the leader, who can give tourism development grants, and the council, who may be able to give you certain grants for septic tanks and the water supply. Look at what you have in the area. So you may have greenways, you may have walkways which have been developed in the last 5 or 10 years. And you will often find there's no accommodation around those. The best example I can give is Waterford Greenway, where there's very limited accommodation. The only thing about the greenways is when people stay with you, they're only going to stay for one night. So you need to build that into your business plan. Do your research on guests before booking. So in other words, the guests will look at various sites. They will see what people have to offer. So you need your own website as well as maybe selling on an online travel agent of one kind or another. We found in the last 2 years, particularly, that there's a very short lead time into bookings. So in other words, people will phone you up and say, I'm going to come and stay next week or even tonight. So you need to be ready for your guests. You might allow bookings in summer, but in the Sperrin Mountains, they have windows in the roof of the buildings, and it allows for stargazing, and they actually sell it as stargazing. So in other words, you might be able to develop an all year round business. The glamping business in Killarney has an all year round business. In fact, they're so busy, they close for the month of January to get a break because they're flat out for the rest of the year. And that's on the edge of Killarney town. You will need in time sustainable certification. So we work with Fáilte Ireland as the Irish National Agency and Tourism Ireland as the international marketing group who will sell Ireland, and they will be looking for certification. So make sure that you have sustainable practices, be it anything from measuring the water that's being used, the heat, solar panels. Barry is the expert on this. So what kind of buildings can you have? You can have pods, barns, you can have galvanized structures, old buildings. You can add new structures to your glamping site. The camper vans that I mentioned, the shepherd's huts, cottages, and you may have small cottages on the farm that you may be able to renovate, but you're definitely going to need one building which is for central support for the system. But sustainability needs to be at the core of the project. So reusing old buildings is brilliant. And if you are reusing old buildings, you need to state it. The wind power, the solar power, and all the other sustainable practices you can use should be included in your plan, your developed business plan. We have various schemes such as Leo's 50 Shade Greener for certification. I wouldn't go to one of the more expensive systems that will certify you. But what everybody wants to know is how much is data, how much power you're using, how much water is being used, etc. And then you can use that in future as part of your sustainability. And make sure when you're talking that you're using sustainable cleaning agents as well. The community wants you to give something back to them. So be careful on the type of clients you're looking for. Do you want hen parties? Do you want weddings? Do you want families? Do you want clients who stay 1 or 2 nights? Do you want people who stay for 3 or 4 nights or even a week? You may have to put in noise control and light control, and they're available. So if there are problems in the community, people will say, oh, that's very noisy. You say, well, we can control it. You can work with local activity providers to increase the offering that you've got. And you can be integrated in the rural landscape. So in other words, if you've got a barn type structure or other structures. So I'm going to send this presentation on to Barry. I'm really sorry it didn't come up. And I'm here to answer questions in a minute.
Máire, thanks a million for that. Despite not having your presentation, you were able to share it with us there a while ago, so I know it's there not too far away.
I know.
But that's no problem. You did a great job. Thanks very much for, and you brought up a lot of points that many people are not aware of, I think, on this whole area of the register for short-term rental. This is all very new, Máire, and not new to you, but new to most people. That this legislation is being passed. Where are we at in terms of that at the moment? And what kind of fines would you get if you or what's the penalty if you don't register as a short-term rental?
Okay, I had a meeting with Fáilte Ireland yesterday about it. The legislation is actually coming from Europe. So Europe is insisting on this being gathered. It will be through in the Parliament in Europe in the middle of February. Fáilte Ireland hopes to have their system up by the summer. At the moment, there is no talks about fines, but what it will mean is the local authority will be going out and checking to see if you're registered. So if you've gone through all the fuss and hassle of getting planning permission and putting in your glamping business in place, you might as well register. There is no harm in registering. There's nothing wrong with it. So in other words, it is a benefit to you and to the industry because we know exactly how many units that Barry Caslin has and how many units that Alan has. So we can see exactly what is available. So in other words, for the travel industry in general, it is a wonderful thing to have a register. We've been calling for it for years. But it's the local authorities will be checking up to see if you've got your registration up. But the problem is, if you don't register, you can't advertise online, in the local shop, on Ireland's Own, or anywhere else. And you will be fined if you do.
Okay. So Máire, there's and the whole area around planning permission. So is somebody who's been renting out their self-catering for the last maybe 20 years, have they to go for planning permission now at this stage, or is that only if you're in a rent pressure zone?
No, we're still in discussions with them as to what the situation is going to be. We're assessing the number of people who don't have planning permission at the moment, and we're talking to government about it. We've been talking to them for the last 2 years, and the government are looking for a solution for it at the moment.
Okay. And okay, so we might come back to that because I see there's some questions that are coming into the Q&A there about this as well, that some people say that RPZ or rent pressure zones are unlikely to affect glamping pods, question mark. They feel it's just an issue for cottages that might be used for permanent housing. Would you agree with that?
No, I actually even brought that up at the meeting I was at yesterday, that glamping has been turned down for planning in rent pressure zone areas, and I'm saying it's ridiculous. So, government again, it was not aware that this was happening. And I said, I have mentioned it, often enough. So I would expect there'd be a more lenient attitude to glamping. But again, we're waiting for the legislation to come through.
So your question here from Eamon, is there a charge to get on the register?
We were told it's going to be a minimal charge.
Okay. Who will be carrying out that register? Will it be the local authority? Will the Irish Self-Catering Federation be involved in this? Who will be actually doing this?
Fáilte Ireland are the statutory agency. They're the government agency who will be managing the register. They actually are ready to go.
Okay, so if you're registered with Fáilte Ireland at the moment, with your holiday home or whatever it may be, if you're registered with them, does that cover you?
Not exactly, if you haven't got planning.
Okay, so you still will need. So going for planning, Máire, you just might explain that a bit. Does planning mean that you have to go back again and get drawings of your house submitted to the local authority? What's involved in all of that?
I can't answer that, Barry, because we're still waiting for clarification from the Department of Housing as to what is involved in that. But what they're talking about is if you can prove that you've been in business for some years, and they will have a system in place to show that, if you've been in business, if you've been running a safe business, you're much more likely to get planning. But we're still waiting for clarification on exactly what they're going to require.
Okay. See a question here from somebody. Can Marie's presentation be shared after the webinar? Yes, absolutely. We'll be putting this up online afterwards, this recording of this webinar, and also the Marie's presentation will go up online as well. There's just a comment in relation to something you said there, Marie. If you're selling food or drinks to tourists, your preparation areas will need to be checked and given the okay by the food safety authority. So just to be careful there.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Máire.
I was saying you can sell other people's food as well with vending machines, a little shop, it takes a lot of time, you're standing there waiting for people to arrive. If it's not a very big business, having a shop might not be the most viable thing to have because you're stuck to it all the time. Whereas vending machines is a great way of selling local foods, not necessarily your own food. But yeah, you have to, if you're selling your own food, it has to be HACCP approved, and the Food Safety Authority have to be involved.
Okay, I just want to bring in our other speakers here at this stage, and listeners, you can keep your questions coming in there. We will come back to them in a couple of minutes, and there's a good few questions coming in, I can say. I just want to go over to Martin there, Martin Keating from Westport Glamping. Martin, good morning again, and great to have
Morning,
you.
Máire.
Maybe just you might just share maybe how you got involved or what inspired you to start Westport Glamping, and how did the whole idea come about?
Yes, Barry. Westport Glamping has 7 full seasons done in business. We started the business because, I suppose, number one, of where we're located, close to Westport town, and Westport has a strong and long tradition of tourism, and I suppose through my other work, I was involved in promoting tourism in the area, and I suppose we matched that interest with our farm, which is 5 kilometers from Westport town, and the desire to have an additional enterprise on the farm that I suppose would take advantage of us being close to what is a thriving tourism area, and I suppose give us an enterprise that fitted in with our own kind of lifestyle and the time that we had available to put into it. So I suppose putting all of those things together and looking at emerging kind of trends in the tourism sector as well, that trend being that people are looking now for more experiences when they holiday, rather than just more of the same. And I suppose, hotel experiences, they don't differ a lot, and we saw maybe a niche there, particularly for families with children, that it's often perceived as being difficult to give them space to do things in hotel accommodation. And I suppose that's where we felt we had an advantage, that we have loads of space, and we were also keen, I suppose, to deliver a farm experience as part of our business, and that's proved to be really, really popular with our guests.
And what do you do in terms of the farm experience? What do the guests see? Do they get to pet lambs, or what's the experience there?
So our farm is a dairy calf to beef enterprise, and we also breed Connemara ponies on the farm. But the most popular, probably, elements of it are our own collie sheepdog, who's quite a welcoming character on the farm, and believe it or not, our hens. And
okay, Martin, you've just gone on mute there a second ago. I've just lost you there. You just went on mute. You probably hit against the button. So maybe I'll just go over to Alan there at this stage. Maybe, Martin, you can unmute yourself there.
You're back again.
You're back again. You're back again, Martin. Yeah.
Just the daily task of feeding the hens and collecting eggs is one, I suppose, and that has developed to a stage where I generally would offer a farm walk during the summer in the evening time for all of the families. So that would involve bringing them to maybe meet the ponies, offer them some feed, go out the land to see the calves, the other cattle. I talk a bit about the enterprise on the farm, which people, a lot of, don't have a lot of experience of a farm, and that's quite popular as well. So I suppose just taking some time to get to know guests, bring them around the farm, show them what you do, show them the tasks that are going on at the various times of the years is really popular.
And Martin, would you think that that glamping is more suited to families, or is it couples, or what's the typical target audience there?
Well, it can be. You can tailor your glamping experience to whichever segment of the market that suits your particular kind of circumstances. But I would say it's more suited to couples and to families. We're a reasonably small glamping site. We don't, I suppose, look for hen stag party kind of business. So I think it is more suited to that. As well as that, you have the benefits that I suppose you don't maybe have as many issues with noise late at night as well, which I suppose does help you to maintain good relationships with your neighbours as well.
Okay, I just want to bring in Alan at this stage. Alan, good morning to you.
Great
to have you as well from Ivy Hill Glamping Pod. Alan, just give us maybe a bit of your experience and about developing the project down in Lahinch in County Clare there. How you came about the idea and how it's going for you.
I suppose being from Lahinch or close enough to Lahinch, it's been a huge surfing spot and golfing, and just in the middle of the Wild Atlantic Way. We're kind of. Well, a lot of what we get are one night stays between people travelling between Galway and Kerry. People come in there at 8 o'clock in the evening and have gone again the following morning 8 o'clock. Like they're just overnights. Now we talking about I suppose 2 or 3 night occupancies. It wouldn't work for us. I suppose where it started, we got the idea about 8 years ago, and I was trying to tap into the Wild Atlantic Way when it started, and basically this was it. We're talking about market research. We didn't really have to do it because there was a lack of bed space locally. Also because the Wild Atlantic Way was as busy as it was. The area was heavily dependent on tourism. I mean, 2 miles from Lahinch, we're 15 minutes from the Cliffs of Moher. I also think the location is key for anyone starting out. No more than myself and Martin there at Westport, and of course as well, it depends how close you are to local communities and that kind of stuff,
You are in a very key area like Lahinch, and as you say, you have the surfers beside you, and Martin is beside Westport, which is great as well because there's a good catchment of tourists coming to that area as well. But are tourists looking for the big towns beside it or that area? Are they looking for a bit of solitude as well? Do they need to have a big town in the hinterland beside it?
I know. I'll give you an example of one. We had a father and a son stand from Israel one time, and basically the father said to me before they left, he was delighted that the son got to stay one night in out the country with the birds singing over his head in the morning. It was just a different opportunity. He was just delighted because he lives in the city, and every night he said in Ireland he was in the city and the towns as well. So we offer him something different out here as well,
Alan, what challenges did you encounter when you were starting your glamping business, and how did you overcome them?
I suppose at the start, I suppose I just tore into it really. But the biggest thing really for me was choosing the right pod. We listened to a few people there, and they were saying, we should target couples, whatever. But I mean, for us, we went for a pod C4. It takes in couples, families, friends, especially to visit the Cliffs of Moher or surfing. It gives people more of an opportunity to kind of stay there together, And even heading out at night, we have, because where we are, we don't. Thankfully, we don't. When I say thankfully, we don't get too many. We don't get stags or hens or that kind of stuff. So it's easier to keep, I suppose, the neighbours and the locals and the family kind of, keep them quieter as well. There's no bother that way.
Okay. And what kind of efforts do you make to improve the overall guest experience at Ivy Hill Glamping? And how do you get your feedback from customers as well?
Well, we're on booking.com. We were with Airbnb as well at the start. We needed a host tools app, and it was very awkward. But basically, we're getting. I mean, we get feedback from when people are checking out in the morning, and We're obviously our booking.com reviews are fairly impressive as well. As far as guest experience, like, you know, I suppose it's a motto I had from the start. We give people what they want and give them a little extra. It helps with returning visitors. You know, I lived with that. I kind of came up with that start and kind of live with it, you know. So little things like, I mean, everything in the pod, for like the families that are coming in there, we have Wi-Fi, we have the smart TV for saying even that might be wet, that, like, you know, the kids might be able to watch Netflix or whatever. You know, we have, there's a toilet, wash hand basin, shower. We have double bed, comfort mattress. You know, everything there everything is there to keep the guests comfortable, and they have what they want, really, you know.
And did you have to build additional toilet facilities or shower facilities to accommodate people? No,
because as again, I did a lot of research when I was picking the pods, and the pod had everything it needed: shower and toilet and kitchenette. You know, it is cozy, but it has everything it needs. It's very self-sufficient, you know.
Okay, how much did your pod cost? Yeah, I know you won pod.
Well, I mean, I bought back about 4 years ago. I suppose we're about this our third year in business now, third season. But I suppose times have changed from when we bought it, because we bought it kind of just before things before the economy started getting more expensive and everything. If we're to buy a pod around the same spec again, we'd probably be looking at 30,000, you know.
And that accommodates 4 people.
That would accommodate 4 people, yeah. It would, yeah.
And can you talk to me a bit about pricing? Because a lot of people are wondering how you price your product on the market.
You know, it's kept an eye on the competitors, really, and kind of. One thing about it, you don't want to underprice yourself either. You kind of have to price for what you're giving the guest, but as in there, say, you don't want to kind of overprice. So, like last year, we had 95% occupancy at €160 a night. It was like there was no complaints, really. But I mean, if like family, fair enough, €160 a night. But if you have 4 friends there, that's €40 a night. So you know, it is value. If you're going to a hotel, you're looking at fairly big money, you know.
Okay.
And you have the privacy, and you have two spaces there for parking as well. So it's you know, it all helps.
Yep. I just want to put that question to Martin as well. Martin, on the area of pricing, how do you price your product in Westport? Is it seasonal? Does it depend on the time of the year? The number of nights you stay? Do you get a discount? How do you work it?
Barry, yeah. It varies. Obviously, the peak season is slightly different. We operate a minimum stay of 2 nights at weekends right throughout the year. We're more flexible with 1 nights during the week in the shoulders kind of the season, July and August. We would operate a minimum of 2 night stays as well. On pricing, look, I agree with most of what Barry has to say. However, I suppose with Alan has to say, we're close to Westport. So as well as what other competitors in the glamping business, we have to keep an eye on the market kind of generally. And I suppose we try to sell as much of our accommodation as we can directly from our own website, and that's, you know, a big saving where we can sell from our own website, and we offer discounts over. We are on booking.com as well. It would be difficult to operate totally kind of without them, but there is, you know, a 15% kind of commission, which is quite significant. Coming down to pricing, our prices would be similar to what Alan has said, around the €160 per night. We would discount it a bit. That would be on booking.com. We would discount it on our own website, because we're not paying the commission on it, and I agree as well. We don't go to the bottom of the market, either in terms of just to sell nights, because I think the term being a busy fool kind of comes into that, in that you have certain kind of costs and labor, your own labor, you have to value that as well, which is a big part of it.
Would you just comment on that, Martin, the labour aspect to it? Because a lot of people I find they go into a diversification like this and they underestimate the labour requirement of the venture. It really is kind of hands-on, and it's a family project really, and you really have to give up your summers to dedicate towards this project, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And, at the start of the season, Marie and I, we have to decide when we're taking any time off and take those out of our booking kind of calendars, because outside of that, you have to be available kind of full time. We have 3 units, I suppose, if on a night of full occupancy, to get them ready, you're talking a minimum of 3 hours after your guests leaving to be ready for arriving guests. And you have to be available then in the evening to meet and greet, get people settled in. And in terms of giving experience, then I mentioned the farm tour. There's always, and you need to give a good experience to have a good knowledge of the local amenities, of things people want to do, and to spend some time with people to, I suppose, help them to get the most out of those, whether it's a recommendation for a restaurant or for bicycle hire, or where to find that extra nice beach that they might like to go and enjoy. So it is really, a full-time, role.
Yeah, all hands on deck. And Martin, can I ask you in the area, because I know you have a local authority background yourself, and the whole area of planning, and this question is coming up here in our chat as well, about planning around glamping pods. Obviously, planning is required because you're going to be providing, shower facilities. You're going to be providing, septic tank, increased septic tank requirements. Could you maybe just give us a rundown on what you need to consider in terms of planning permission around glamping pods, please?
Yeah, well, look, I first of all, I think where you're placing them, your site is the most important thing. And I think there's 2 different scenarios. One is where you're integrating your glamping business into your existing kind of farmyard or structure of buildings on the farm. And the other is where you're going into a greenfield site, and particularly if that's in a very high amenity value area, which is always going to be more difficult, where you're making a brand new intervention, maybe making a new entrance onto a road and putting in both the glamping pods and buildings. So that one is going to be more difficult, and you have to, I suppose, look at kind of a lot broader things. First of all, whether you're whether the site has a designation kind of on it, and what impact the glamping may have on that. So, and in an area like that, you certainly need, to bring in a broader, I suppose, team of experts kind of with you to successfully negotiate that. I suppose where you're maybe using your existing kind of farm yard structure, where you have an existing road, where you have existing water, sewage services, and that, it is, I would suggest a lot more straightforward to deal with, in that it isn't a new kind of intervention into the countryside. I would say, you do need to talk to your planners at an early stage. Most local authorities have pre-planning meetings where you can go in and discuss the requirements. I'm not totally familiar.
Should you sketch something out of your thoughts before you go into them, like maybe maybe get something down on paper with an architect or something like that?
I don't think you need to go as far as an architect kind of with it, but it is useful, I suppose, to bring in, I suppose, at least the map of the area, and maybe a rough sketch of what you actually kind of have in mind, kind of with it, is probably enough to get, I suppose, a view in principle about how it would be seen, with the planning authority. I'm not totally up to date with the new regulations that are coming in around short-term kind of lettings. I suppose, look, we have to wait and see what that actually brings and will mean for the sector.
Yeah. Question here, maybe we'll put it both to Alan and to yourself. I'll go to Alan there first. Alan, for Glamping, what are the main ways of advertising? What would you recommend? Is it Airbnb? If you can answer it fairly fast, because we have a good few questions coming in there.
Yeah, well, we kind of started with both. We started with both. We had hosting tools out there, and yeah, it was just awkward. And I found we were getting an offer at MhurchúBooking.com than Airbnb. So anyway, eventually after the first season, we just pulled the plug on Airbnb, and obviously the hosting tools app had to go with it as well. So we concentrated mainly on Booking.com last year. And I find Booking.com very good. Like if there's cancellations or late cancellation or anything like that, there's no issue. You're talking about 15% of a charge. I can't speak highly enough of Booking.com, in fairness. Any resolutions, which there is very little. That Booking.com definitely for us. We have an Instagram page as well. For cheap advertising, I suppose, if you're going to try and get maybe an influencer in there, or maybe get them to tag you on the Instagram page, we did that there at one stage as well, and we got about something like 200 ads or 200 additions to the page, and that like. But
how much did you have to pay an influencer for that?
Just so we gave her a night, just give her a night free in the pot. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Martin, moving to you there, in terms of advertising, just to answer that question as well, what would you use? Do you use Airbnb, Bookings.com?
Well, we as I said earlier, we try to use our own website and to drive as much business, and we use social media, Facebook and Instagram, and to try and drive business to our own website. And yeah, we're registered on Booking.com kind of as well. I suppose we manage the two of them as best we can. In periods where we feel we'll sell out on our own website, we won't have it available on Booking.com, and then on the quieter periods we'll have it available on both.
Okay. Question here, this is probably from Máire. I'm Fáilte Ireland quality assured and pay €165 per year. Will I have to go on the new register too? Will the public be confused over the register and quality insurance and quality assurance?
The straight answer is yes. And Fáilte have said that they were going to do a piece of work on this, explaining what the difference between the two is. But with the register, everybody who has got short-term rental of any type is going to have to be on the register. So if it's a glamping pod, if it's an off-grid unit, if it's a cottage, if it's a castle, everything is going to have to be on the register.
And I know you're not 100% sure of it, but that register will be with the local authority, and you probably will be dealing with your local authority to get on that register.
No. What you will do is you will go online to the portal that Fáilte Ireland will manage, and you put in your details, which is fine. The thing is, they will be sharing that information with Brussels, and they will also be sharing the information with the local authority. So if you haven't got planning, you're going to be in trouble.
Okay. Martin, did you have to get planning for each pod, or was it a difficult process? You've kind of answered that question there. Do you have to go individually for each pod, or do you do it as a whole unit, or can you add on afterwards? And do you have to go for planning again, I presume?
Not individually. I suppose we developed the site at the beginning and had. We have 3 units. We had capacity for 3 in the site from the very beginning, and I would imagine, generally, if you get a planning in principle for it, adding an additional unit or 2 isn't as difficult afterwards.
Okay. Does Martin have an added charge for his farm walks?
At the moment, no. I don't have an added charge for the farm walks. It's part of the service that we offer. But we're thinking about looking at doing some merchandising around that and having some items for sale that might generate some income and that would be promoted during the farm walk.
Okay. If you are not an official farm, but have land in the countryside, is there anything to consider in planning and regulations, etc.? Well, you're really going to just have to go through the same planning process as everybody else, whether you're a farm or a non-farm, I think is the answer to that. Question, do you have a list of some maybe that's a question for you, Máire, and maybe we'll just talk about insurance just for a second here, because Sinead has brought up that question here. Do you have a list of some insurance companies in the Republic that will quote for glamping sites? Is it difficult to get planning there, Máire?
Insurance, you mean?
Or sorry, insurance.
It is, and that's why you want to make sure you've got your health and safety planning as part of the whole thing. So in other words, you're not near dangerous machinery or streams or anything like that. So there are certain companies in the market in Ireland. Basically, to put it bluntly, FBD is the best one at the moment that we are finding for getting insurance for glamping, as well as other farm businesses. We have talked to other companies, but again, it's quite difficult at the moment. And you need to build in your insurance planning as you're developing your project.
Okay, Alan, and have you your experience with insurance?
Yeah, we got insurance through FPD because I have the farm and the house and everything else with them there. I found them very good, which I always have, and they're very easy to deal with. Once you get a rep on board, or just try and get someone to come out and have a look at your property, get them to walk around it and do whatever they have to do, take photographs of it, so that in the event of a fire or something like that, that they'll know what was there before the fire started. If it's a wooden unit or whatever, Yeah. So there can be any complaints afterwards or any confusion.
Okay, and Martin, our insurance?
Similar story. FPD are insurers, and we have a good relationship with them.
Okay, a question here, I suppose, is a general one. Alan and Martin, are you concerned that the new government rules around planning may close your business? Do you have any concern?
Look, I don't have any concerns around it. Mine is a legitimate business. The glamping is a legitimate business. It isn't, in my view, it isn't a potential for long-term housing for other people. I'm not denying anybody that potential by using my glamping for short-term rental. So no, I'm not concerned about it.
And Máire, from the Irish Self-Catering Federation perspective, you're probably happy with a register being developed as well. Is it something that you welcome?
We've been calling for a register for many years, and we welcome a register. And the register is fine. It gives clarity on how many units Martin has, and how many Alan has, and how many places are available all around the country. And it gives us nearly the same status, almost as to say, as a hotel. So in other words, the hotel is going to have to be registered in the same way as we are. It gives a status. The problem is, the elephant in the room is the planning, which has not yet been clarified and sorted. But we have been promised it will be clarified, and that rural areas are going to be treated differently to urban areas, and areas in rent pressure zones, rural areas in rent pressure zones will also be treated more favourably. But we're still waiting for the documentation to come from the Department of Housing.
Okay, technical question in here for Alan and for Martin. How do you heat the water for the showers in each pod? I know there isn't enough power for the 6 electric showers. So maybe I'll go to Alan there first. How do you heat yours?
Well, we have our pod is self-sustainable there. It will heat its own water through a cylinder in the back of the machine. With it's feeding the shower unit itself, and it's feeding the wash hand basin.
Are you using electricity to heat the water?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, electricity. Yeah.
Okay, and Martin?
Yeah, well, ours is a little different in that we have a communal kind of area with the showers, kind of in that it's in a barn that was converted for that purpose. We heat our water we have a solar PV, and we have a water heating system on the roof as well. So most of ours is generated during the summer off the grid.
And when you say water heating system on the roof, is that solar thermal heating system?
That's solar thermal. We have solar thermal as well as the solar PV.
Okay, very good. Question here, what percentage of your income are your running costs? Would it be 30, 40, 50%?
I have to do some quick kind of figures in my head, but it is certainly above 30 and probably closer to 40%. Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree with that, Alan, as well?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, but in fairness, our costs are fairly low. Really, it's bar a few things we're providing for the pod, maybe the shampoos, the shower gel, tea, coffee, small bits of that, milk, toilet roll. I can buy my own time there is really what I mean. You know, you can spend a lot of time in the farm there, and as far as I'm concerned, you might never get paid for it. Whereas here, you're seeing some return on it, like.
Okay, we'll rattle through these fairly fast. Alan, you mentioned one night stays. Do you charge a premium for the one night?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we don't have a special on 2 or 3 nights, like, you know.
Okay. Another question: do you do the laundry in house or send it out to a laundrette?
In house.
In house, Martin.
No, we send it out. We send it out to get it done.
Okay. How tricky is it to manage the bookings when you're selling from your own website and bookings.com? Do you need good IT skills for this? I suppose that's a pretty good question, because you could get a private booking and you could get one on bookings.com and Airbnb all at the same time. How do you manage all that? You could get fined maybe by overbookings.
Okay, we have that system. So we utilized the online voucher from the Leo office to develop our website, and that has a booking engine on it that integrates in with the booking.com system. So the two of them talk to each other so that we don't double book.
Brilliant. Okay, Alan,
really worthwhile going to the Leo office and seeing the supports that they can give you to get your business online.
That's very good advice. Your local enterprise office is linked into your local authority. So and Alan, do you want to comment on that as well?
Well, it's fairly handy operate hours, because we're kind of solely dealing with booking.com. We don't have a website, so that's the only thing that we have to be worried about, like.
Okay.
And
have you created, Máire, you want to say something there?
I was going to say there's booking calendars. So I would, in my own business, I would work with 3 or 4 different OTAs, as well as taking direct bookings. So I use a booking calendar it manages everything for me.
Okay. Question from Murray. I have a house with 6 bedrooms. I sold some nights on Airbnb as a test to see if I liked it. Would I get guests? I am in the most remote. I'm in the most remote house in Ireland, I reckon. But am I in a rent pressure zone? Well, you don't have the location, so we don't really. You're not able to say here. I don't know where that house is, so we don't know if it's in a rent pressure zone or not. Have you created social media accounts for your glamping sites? If so, do you see booking conversions from these? So are you involved? I do have Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I think you mentioned those already, Martin. You use Instagram. What do you use, Alan? Social media?
We're on Instagram. We definitely saw a few private messages coming in through there as well, you know. As I said, when the influencer came, she tagged herself, and next thing, a few people came off that as well. So yeah, there's different ways of doing it. Like,
okay, Martin, did you need to get an environmental assessment report done with your planning application?
I didn't at the time. It's gone back 7 or 8 years ago, and not in SAC or any designation, so it didn't require it.
Okay, thanks. Are there funding grants available for glamping startups? Did any of you get funding for your projects from Leader or any other sources?
Well, in Mayo, the Leader company doesn't fund accommodation, so no is the answer there. Yeah.
Máire?
I was just going to say one thing we haven't mentioned yet is it's quite difficult to get funding. However, in the just transition area, which is the Midlands, there is funding available for accommodation, but you will have to have an environmental impact assessment done, and you have to get your planning. You need to get all your ducks in a row to get that money, and there is plenty of money in it in the just transition area only, though.
Okay. I have to leave it there, folks. That was absolutely fantastic. Loads of questions coming in, loads of interest in this whole area. This webinar has been recorded. It will be available to go up online afterwards on YouTube. And we will also have the link there to tomorrow's presentation, which we didn't just get to see there at the moment.
Sorry, can I say something, Barry, before you finish up there? Just if anyone, I've helped a few people out in the past there to start up and that, but if anyone wants any information or any advice, get in contact with me there. My number is on, I don't know, Barry shared or whatever, but my number is on Google as well, there to Ivy Hill Glamping Pod.
Yeah, and you're on Facebook as well, so
and LinkedIn as well there, yeah. Okay,
thanks very much for that. I want to thank our 3 guests because we really have run out of time. Loads of questions. Martin Keating from Westport Glamping, Alan Vaughan from Ivy Hill Glamping, and Máire Mhurchú from the Irish chair of the Irish Self-Catering Federation. All fantastic knowledge and information from you all. I'll be back next week. I'll be talking about dairy direct, so we'll talk about selling milk directly from the farm through vending machines. So from me, Barry Caslin, thank you very much for watching, and talk to you next.
Bye.